everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. I am Chris, joined by my brothers Adam.
Hello.
And Eric.
Hello.
And we are back in the room to talk once more about video games, with this week's episode focused on the 25th anniversary of Resident Evil. Not just the first game, but the franchise as a whole has been with us for the last 25 years, and we're going to celebrate it. The original Resident Evil launched on March 22nd, 1996.
Almost as old as I am.
So we're having a good unexpected celebration. If you're listening to us on YouTube at any point, you can jump into the comments to share your own thoughts on Resident Evil. There's a lot of things we're going to cover in terms of favorite game, favorite monster, favorite character, just throughout the entire franchise. Just celebrate all things Resident Evil based. We might even touch on those movies since they're out there too. So at any point, if you want to jump in, make sure to jump down into the comments and let us know your favorite things about Resident Evil throughout. And then you can also give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this video. Hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell so you know when we put out future episodes and you're kept up to date with us. You can also listen to this in audio platforms on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you might like to listen to us. And you can touch base with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take. So, without further ado, let's talk Resident Evil.
Favorite. What's your favorite color of ammo boxes? Huh? Is it the green shotgun or the red handgun?
What's your favorite color herb?
I like the green herb.
I like the green herb. Yeah,
I miss the yellow herb.
When did the yellow herb come into it?
Resident Evil 4, and it was gone in Resident Evil 5.
I don't know if
it was only in one game, I think.
Really?
I mean, I only remember it in Resident Evil 4 because it's.
Yeah, I know, but I don't remember
it. Increase your health.
But I've never played Code Veronica, for example.
No one.
Good point.
So it's hard to know.
Is that available, Code Veronica?
Only in the Dark Side Chronicles on the Wii.
I think it's on. Is it not on PlayStation's Play?
What are you talking about, son?
I've seen Code Veronica X somewhere.
Is that not a Dreamcast game?
It was, yeah, but I think it's been ported.
So it's like on the PlayStation Store or something somewhere? Actually, I think I've seen that. Yeah, actually it is. It is on it.
Seen it. Yeah.
Oh, like in the PlayStation Classics section, maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
You get it and play it. Anyway. Speaking of favorites, I mean, we might as well start there. This has been a long-running franchise, and there's many games in it, and some are rated much higher than others, and the series has gone to many different directions. But what is your favorite Resident Evil game at this point? There's more to come, of course. Look at Eric flexing off his Umbrella Corporation t-shirt.
Look what I'm wearing.
Yeah, I actually kind of like it. Eric, then let's start with you. Then you kind of brought yourself
favorite
up.
One. Okay, so on a basis of introducing me to the Resident Evil franchise and introducing me to horror games, it kind of would go to Resident Evil 4 on a nostalgia basis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And out of most Resident Evil games, it's the longer one. Out of the ones I like, it's the longer one.
I think it probably is the longest one, is it?
It's the longest one I've ever played, I think.
You can clear Resident Evil 5 in like 5 hours. So I think so. Yeah. I think Resident Evil 4 definitely.
Two was quite short. Not just the remake, but I think the two originally was quite short.
I think Resident Evil 3 is really short as well.
Yeah.
So that one was really good, especially because they reinvented the horror genre, bringing you down into the yoking, slightly moved the camera angles and shit like that. much more slightly. It felt like also, I think we've said this before when we talked about it, because we definitely talked about Resident Evil 4.
We did.
A little bit like the fact that it's like Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, it is.
And we all love
Oh,
Metal Gear
yeah.
Solid, so
No,
this
not
is
like
like,
that.
I think some was
badass
like
spy going in, and he's got his little codec thing, where you can see the images. It's like, wow, this is this is Metal Gear Solid beats Resident Evil, fucking badass. Yo, you gotta go in and save the president's daughter.
Oh, it's like an MGS plot straight
It's-
away. Except that the villains are not some balaclava wearing dudes. They're just regular Joes with pitchforks.
They're the scariest residents you'd ever meet.
Yeah, they're really evil residents, to be honest with you.
As for a nowadays, considering upping the graphics and the gameplay mechanics and stuff like that, and actually as a zombie game, because while Resident Evil 4 is amazing, it doesn't have the traditional zombies, which after a while I kind of really wanted to play a game where I fight the traditional zombies.
Right.
There wasn't a lot like Call of Duty Zombies is shit, so that doesn't count. Yeah. I mean, it was good at the time, but after a while, you're like, I'm really just doing the same thing over and over again. And then most other zombie games had like types of zombies. Oh, here's the fat zombie. Here's the acid spitting zombie. Here's the fast zombie.
Yeah,
And
it
you're
weren't
like-
scary. It lost the horror,
Yeah.
of it, didn't it?
Yeah. So when they then brought Resident Evil 2 Remake, that was a phenomenal game as well.
I heard it was, yeah.
It's really good.
It's
It's really good. It's fucking scary, but it's really good.
Okay, so yeah, top three.
Still sealed downstairs.
Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 7.
Will you stop smacking that table like as if you're angry at
Sorry,
it?
I'm actually not smacking it. I am gently placing my hands.
I am
That's all-
making a point. Yeah, well, yeah, what you have to do is like stop your hand before it hits the table. That mic picks up that hand like a fucking chopping board.
Yeah,
so sorry, top three. What were you saying? Top three?
Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 7.
Why 7?
Because I tend to be very like, if I see a game, if I
hate myself.
I tend to see if I see a first person game, I am very quick to be like, okay, all right, okay. And then on top of that, Resident Evil 5, not that good. Resident Evil 6, god awful. So Resident Evil 7, you'll be like, okay. And your first person 2, okay. And then it just blew me away. It was such a good game.
Cool.
Because
Thanks.
it's just so good. Graphically, and the setting and everything, is just really fucking good because it's so different. It's so different to what we usually get, and you are a bit like guessing the whole time because it's not your traditional. We're Umbrella and we've released a little virus. I mean, it is that, but you have to wait. You have to wait till the end of the game.
Spoiler.
To find that out.
Yeah.
And the idea of like the residents of the house were not inherently evil at first. They were
Right.
actually really nice people. And most of the time were nice. It's just through ages of being indoctrinated by this creepy fucking ring girl
Yeah.
that became the most brutally, viciously terrifying Louisiana family.
Why is it called Resident Evil in the West? Actually, like, we've brought up a couple of times there, going, "Oh, the residents are evil," like kind of as a joke. But like the fact that it's called Biohazard in Japan, why is the Western equivalent Resident Evil? Like, I love it as a title because it's like it's the first thing you think of when you hear that phrasing together. Like it's not a grammatically correct phrase.
What's interesting is how that ended up taking over. So now in Japan it's called Resident Evil, I believe.
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
It's no longer called Biohazard.
Well, the older ones would be, but like new games now, like Resident Evil 2 and Village and stuff like that, they're Resident Evil. It's
Yeah, I
not
suppose on
Biohazard.
all the social medias, it's always just it's Resident Evil, isn't it? It's never Biohazard.
I
It's
think
so interesting.
I can't really remember, but I think it had something to do with there was already something called Biohazard, and they didn't have the rights to call their game Biohazard in the West. I think, as far as I remember, I think that's the reason.
Oh,
They
yeah,
had to come up with another name.
I get that they had to come up with another name. Imagine Biohazard was used in
Just
many-
why Resident Evil?
Yeah, why Resident Evil? It's such an interesting title because like you would think then he's like, okay, we can't call it Biohazard. Let's call it Infection or let's call it Pandemic or so. Yeah, exactly. Something that's
I don't
derivative
know.
of.
When they were typing into their name generation, that's the one that came up.
And thank God it did because it's a cool.
It is
I
a
think
cool
it's
name,
title.
yeah.
Resident Evil. It's just something kind of. Well, now it's just an iconic gaming title, isn't it?
Mm.
Adam, what's your favorite Resident Evil game?
I think when we were talking about 4, I probably said this already, that 4 is my favorite. But I can't really, I mean, I don't have much to go on here. I can't exactly, I didn't play every Resident Evil in existence. So my list is limited. And by that limited list, 4 is the best. Hands down.
Hands down and hands up. Yeah, 4 would be my favorite as well. It's not the first one I ever played, but it's the first one that I really got into, and it would have got me into the series a lot more. And also, I think it was to this day probably still the most creative one. I know that 7 went first person, and Village coming now is a continuation of that, but it also has a lot of kind of callbacks to Resi 4, I feel. But just Resident Evil 4 was like the first. Was like the camera angle has changed, the enemies have changed. The only thing that's sort of that's drawing you in, if you're maybe a returning fan, is the fact that it's Leon S. Kennedy, who's a returning character who before that point was one of the protagonists of what was probably one of the most beloved Resident Evil games, being 2. So I think that you have a character you're familiar with, but you have territory and a story that you're not familiar with at all, and yet it still kind of maintains that sort of Resident Evil formula of like puzzles and different types of monsters and enemies, and and it's cheesy as hell, and I fucking love it. Where's everybody gone?
That's
Bingo?
time.
Like, it's great.
Going back into the Resident Evil 1 roots there a little bit. It's
a little bit. Yeah. You were nearly a jail sandwich. That line never gets old. Oh,
it was evolutionary too, like not just for Resi, but just for the gaming industry as a whole. Like just so much owes tech, I guess, to Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, and we did a whole episode on Resident Evil 4, so we went into greater detail on all of its kind of aspects. Sometime last year, like it's a good while back, but if you're on YouTube, we'll link it down. You can check it out. If you've missed it, it's I mean, we went into everything about it in terms of the plot, the monsters, everything that we like about it, and why we rate it so highly. So it's probably no surprise that it's our favorite, and I think a lot of people, it probably is their favorite Resident Evil game. But I'm curious as to who's your favorite Resident Evil character, because they've had a lot of really good protagonists that have actually become very, very iconic in gaming in general. You pick up a gaming magazine and you'll see a lot of the Resident Evil protagonists, pop up, and even some of them I knew without having ever played a game. Jill Valentine is one, for example, that I recognized before I ever played a Resident Evil game. I was like, that's Jill Valentine from Resident Evil. I had no idea which one she was in, and no idea what her role was, but I was like, that's Jill Valentine. But so who's your favorite Resident Evil character? Eric's just gonna.
You mean like playable?
I think it could be either.
So out of the entire series.
The entire series. Who's your favorite Resident Evil character, and why are they your favorite?
Ashley Graham. I love when she calls out your name.
That rhymed. Beautiful. I mean, I know you're fucking lying, but
yeah, absolutely. Leon, help! No, you know what? I'm done with this place, Ashley. Have fun. Yeah. I'm done.
That's more about who's your least favorite Resident Evil character, and it's like possibly Ashley. It's like if there's one thing that you did not do is you did not encourage me to want to save the person I'm here to save. Oh my God, just die.
Favorite character out of good guys and bad guys. Fuck, there's a lot of good ones.
This is a difficult question.
It's a difficult question.
I would struggle to answer that one.
I mean, as a protagonist, I'd probably say Matthew Mercer's Leon from 4, or just Leon in general.
Yeah, he's a badass, isn't he?
A very badass character as a protagonist. Even if you take the films, like the CGI ones, yes. Let's clarify.
If you haven't seen those guys, maybe check them out. They're not bad.
They're not bad. They didn't choose Chris. They chose Leon because he's the cool guy. And even in Vendetta, the third one, where they did have Chris, it's still Leon. They made Leon like John Wick in that. He's fucking awesome. So cool. As a villain, Wesker because he's just cheesily badass. I fucking love Wesker. So
Yeah,
good.
you did go through like a phase of just loving Wesker.
Wesker was, but he was also, again, he was a villain that that I love. I love villains that have somewhat of a, yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from. I mean, your plan is psychotic, but he wanted to save the planet. So okay, that's a nice goal. I mean, you're psychotic and your plan is going to destroy the world, but it's a nice plan.
It's certainly a reach.
It's So I really loved him, and I loved his ability. His ability was really good, and his design.
Yeah. He is fucking
really
cool.
Lines.
I get why you love him, and I get why many people love him. I kind of take issue with Wesker a little bit. Like, I love how he looks, and I love his abilities, but I feel like his goal to save humanity is just a Resi 5 thing. I feel like he's a totally different character in Resi 5 to the one that he is in Resi 1. And originally, he's just this backstabbing, works for the corporation, Bond henchman kind of character. Yeah. And eventually, he's this, super Sephiroth character.
Yeah,
and
he started the first one, and then he's in Code Veronica, where he comes back, and he has those powers, and he has the long leather jacket.
Yeah, but they leave it kind of ambiguous about what he's actually doing or what he wants.
And then in 4, he's like Spectre.
Yeah.
And then
4
in 5,
I think, where it kind of introduces him as something bigger than what he was.
And then in 5, it's that he has this big ultimate goal.
Like, I've always enjoyed his roles in the game. I like Wesker as a character, but the one thing I take issue with is I don't think they've ever had like this kind of clear motivation for him. And as a result, by the time it came to Resi 5, I prefer Wesker before Resi 5. I like how he looks in Resi 5, and I like everything he does. But in Resi 5, I'm like, what have you done with this villain? Like, you've turned him from this cool kind of spy, secretive character of, like, what's he really up to and who's he really working for, to just this cheesy super villain. I don't know. I know. I think a lot of people do like him in that one, but apart from his design, he loses me a bit.
Like, when it comes down to it, it's not like you got a huge list of villains to actually be like, yeah, this one is so cool. Like,
right.
You really just have, Salazar. No. Yeah, Sadler. Lord Sadler? Or is it
Lord Sadler? Yeah.
Salazar is the king chap. Like, Sadler's really cool.
Yeah.
But he only has that one. Right? Or you have the Alexander. Right, yeah. Then you only have the twins.
Man, you hate that table. You just hate it.
Really love banging that table. Yeah.
I'm actually gently touching it.
You can't do that. The mic picks up everything.
All right, not your hands.
Put your hands up.
Then you have like the twins, and the twins are only in that one. And while they're really interesting, they're only in that one. And then when you get to Nemesis and 2, you have Tyrant and Nemesis. Like, you don't have a lot of villains to explore and enjoy and like. So I think that's why. Is it okay for me? Can you hear if I tap the chair?
Yeah, tap everything.
Christ.
What's happened?
Stop tapping.
I can't help it. My hands have a mind of their own. So you don't have like a lot of villains to kind of explore or get used to like. And maybe that's why a lot of people then just really like Wesker.
Yeah. No, I get why people like him. It was always weird to me. When he got to 5 and you got to his master plan, that's where I was like, wait, what? What is going on? What are you doing? Anyway, but that's just me. Adam, who's your favorite Resident Evil character?
I really don't know, because I could say like I enjoyed like playing as Leon in 4, but I can't say I enjoy Leon as a character, because I find with the Resident Evil games, and this is not like an insult to the games or anything like that, but it's just because all of them are really, really good. But they have the most inconsistent characters. In terms of character arcs, there isn't a consistent character. Maybe Chris. Chris is pretty consistent, I think.
Yeah.
But no one else.
Apart from lately.
Well,
so actually, we've just proven your point, I think.
We don't know.
I mean, he doesn't even look the same.
Well, that was in 7. Yeah, in 7
I know.
Nothing like, and then in 8 they went, let's reel him back. Everyone was a bit confused.
No, but even at that, it's like, what the fuck? He looks like a DC character drawing as opposed to
Lad.
he's big in all the wrong places.
He was made with the Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
I just think that it's really hard to kind of say, oh, this particular character, but you could say this character in that event.
Yeah, right.
In
Okay.
every situation, they seem to be written differently for the situation that they're currently in. That seems to be how they're written.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say who's my favorite. Other than just, I really liked Leon in 4.
Yeah.
And
are we just all going to say the
Jill,
same answer?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Jill is such an iconic character, but it's really hard to say even. She's not even that consistent, really. Either.
Right. Yeah. 1 minute she's brunette, then she's blonde.
That's true. Yeah.
What's going on?
I mean, they've not established hair dye in the Resident Evil series, so it's hard to get behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where they lose me, to be honest with you.
To be honest, I've never played Resident Evil thinking like, oh yeah, I'm in it for this character and this. Like, it's not a character-driven story. That's not the purpose of.
That's not. But you don't even play Resident Evil games. You play at the start and go, nope. I am shit scared.
You play Resi 2.
I've played 7. I played all through 7.
And I haven't done
well
that.
done.
Well done. That, actually. I haven't done that.
I really love 7 actually. I think I know 4 is my favorite, but 7. What I love about 7 is that it feels like an indie game. It doesn't feel like the big, stupid blockbuster studio style game where they're just like making a game purely to reach specific like kind of checkpoints. It's like, oh yeah, well that's successful and that's successful. 7 just feels like, we just want to make a game.
Yeah,
I did really well.
Yeah, it's really good.
Did really well.
It's an awesome game. I wish I could play it.
Just play it, Chris. Super easy.
Do you know what it is?
With our combined efforts.
Yeah, with our combined efforts,
right,
we'll get through those games.
We could both get through 7 and 2. And that way I can finally see 2 and you can finally see 7.
We need to make this happen, I suppose. Right? We need to make this happen. We did a live stream of the Maiden demo on our channel. I suppose we'll share that too. We'll post that. But yeah, you know what? I was like really nervous about playing it, and then just having people's comments coming through, it was just like, oh, you know what? This is kind of fun. It's just like hanging out with people, and the scariest part was wearing the headphones. To be honest with you.
Oh, definitely.
And I was like, but you kind of have to do it. So I wonder if we're playing Resi 2 and Resi 7, should we put the headphones on? And
I'll tell you what's really nerve-wracking is playing it in VR with headphones.
Now that's like, I don't hate myself that much.
It's not because like it's immersive and scary, but it's like, even with headphones, I think what makes it terrifying with headphones is that you can't tell if someone's going to come up behind you, and like that's the scary bit for me. Is always like I've now completely shut off my senses from the world I'm currently in.
Yeah.
With VR, now you can't even fucking see if someone can come up, right? And there's be often times where Pagan would come in and she's like trying to grab something, and I can feel the vibrations on the floor, like of someone's walking, and I'm just like, who's there?
That's fucking terrifying.
It is. That's scarier than the actual game. Is the fact that
how
you're
can you do that?
Cutting off.
Play Resi 2.
How do you not play Resi 2? It's not that bad.
Well, in fairness, with 7 VR, I didn't play through the whole game. I experienced the beginning of it just to kind of see what it's like. Actually, it was. It was the beginning of it. I've already cleared it at that point multiple times.
Yeah.
So I'm already somewhat desensitized to the game and the experience of it. So there's like things you can go, oh yeah, I know this bit's going to happen next, So you can be kind of aware of that. But I wouldn't do it for the first time. Fuck no.
No way. Fuck that. My favorite Resi character actually kind of goes back to what you were saying actually about the characters not really having arcs and they kind of change depending on the situations. So I enjoy playing as Leon in 4, but I do agree that that's a totally different character to the character in Resi 2. And I know there's like a 6-year gap, but in that 6-year gap he goes from rookie cop with no emotions to the most badass Secret Service agent who can fucking, do spinny kicks to giant monsters. And it's just like, what? His training did not prepare him for this. But it's badass and it's cool and I enjoy it. But my favorite character in the whole Resi franchise from the ones I've played kind of does stay consistent. And that's Ada Wong. I love Ada. And she actually probably does, apart from maybe 6. Resi 6 is the only one where, well, she's still a bit mysterious, but it goes a little bit off the walls. But from Resi 4 and Resi
as opposed
2,
to the other games, only Resi 6 goes off the
Resi
walls.
6 sense that like
Resi 6 just goes off the walls anyway.
Yeah, but it kind of half has a child with like that's a child of like if you smash Resi with Devil May Cry 2 a little bit, isn't it?
Devil May Cry 4 or 3 or 1, not 2.
Well, just
any Devil May Cry really, but 2 is less fantastical. I found, so that's why there is still ridiculous motorcycle kind of moments in Resi, right? Resi 6. Right. I've never played Resi 6. I'm just going off what
I've played it.
Videos.
I have played all of Leon's story, and I think half of Chris's story. I went, no, this is just shit. Because it's the camera work, and you're running around, and it's hard to. It doesn't feel like Resi. Like music-wise, graphically, it's not really much of an improvement. Like the way the health is done and the ammo and the weapons, the whole thing, it just doesn't feel like a Resi game.
But like in terms of tone, am I completely off saying that it's like Devil May Cry 2?
Kind of, I suppose.
I think it's
like a shit.
It's really hard to say what the tone of that game is, to be honest with you. One of the story arcs feels a bit like one of the newer Tekken games.
Oh yeah,
and
that's the other
one of them. Yeah, one of them.
Jake Mueller, yeah.
Jake Mueller. That kind of feels like even the characters nearly look like in that one, one of the more modern, Tekken 6 era Tekken games.
Chris's is kind of like Call of Duty.
Kinda.
And then Leon's is kind of like they're trying to do.
Leon's is slightly Resident Evil.
Yeah,
but then also Mission Impossible 5 or something. With lots of fucking QuickTime events and him just barely getting out of the disasters that he gets himself into. And all of it is very inconsistent, and you're just like, what is the plot in this? Let's go.
You have to play the whole. You have to play everything, all stories, to actually get the plot. Because each bit is extremely confusing. You're like, I am here and I don't know why. And
which I do remember was one of my gripes about the Resi 2 remake, which I know is a very faithful. It's actually a very faithful remake in terms of the way it's told. But it was like I felt like if you play, obviously you're going to play both scenarios, but any one scenario feels like an incomplete experience. And I mean, it's a play on the way it was done in the PS1 era, but I just felt like had they reworked it in such a way whereas you swap between the two characters in one continuous campaign, it would have, like, I really liked that game. I praised it quite a lot on this, but that would have just raised it for me personally, and I think a lot of other people maybe wouldn't have agreed with that, and maybe would have been like, Chris, man, what are you talking about?
I think that was the only criticism I've heard about Resident Evil 2 when it first came out was there was a lot of confusion around the structure of it. Yeah. Especially for those not familiar with the PS1 version. Right. So perhaps you're right. Maybe it needed to be modernized in that sense, where it's a much more consistent intertwined story than the one they have, isn't it? Like, you're doing the same shit, but it's not the same shit, but it's kind of the same shit, but it reflects on the shit that the other person's doing, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's just a bit strange. But also, actually, so after Ada, Claire Redfield is my other favorite Resident Evil character.
Claire.
I really like Claire, and I think from the games,
soft spot for the ladies.
I do. Yeah, I think Resi has great female characters, and actually, I think Claire is another one of the characters that no matter which game she's in, and even she was in one of the films as well, or maybe two of the films, but she was definitely in Degeneration.
She's only in one of them, yeah.
She also remains consistent. I think she is a consistent character that they have an understanding of.
She's in 2 of them, no?
She's in 2
3
games,
4 of
and
them,
she's
5 of
in.
them.
She's
Is that
in
not
2.
Claire in Extinction?
Oh well, we're talking about those films. I think Chris was talking about the CGI films.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about the CGI movies. Sorry,
She's only
sorry.
in one
sorry,
CGI.
sorry.
I mean,
Sorry.
she's
In
not.
the live
she's-
action.
clarify
she's
that.
in 3. She's in.
Sorry. Yeah, in the live action, sorry, she no, Claire is not done justice in the.
Yeah. She's
No
in 3.
character is done justice in the live, except for maybe just how Nemesis looks.
I mean, Wesker is pretty damn close to how he's depicted in 5.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
cheesy as fuck.
Yeah, but
He even
Yeah.
does the glasses throwing thing.
Yeah.
That's bang on.
That was
yeah, and he talks to Chris and Claire as if he's known them for years, and it's just one quick segment where it's like,
so good.
this is just weird. This is so clearly fan service in a movie that you haven't built up this relationship at all.
Yeah.
Like he's
so
the arch enemy in this of Alice.
So good though.
What are you? No, it's
And
not
then he-
so
and then-
good.
and then-
There's
and
nothing
then-
good about it, Eric.
And then he's not. And then he's not the arch enemy of Alice in the end.
So, but then
we'll get to
Yeah.
that though.
yeah, maybe. We'll see if we want to get to that. To be honest.
Oh, you haven't seen the last one, have you, Adam?
I don't think I've seen the last 2.
I
think
after- if you're
come
looking for-
on.
If you're looking for some
Afterlife is the
shit
last
to
one.
watch, those 2 films are at the top of good crack.
And I'm pretty sure I
Yeah.
watched. I think I watched Afterlife. Afterlife's the 4th one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I watched that without watching Extinction.
That must be
I watched Extinction afterwards. I think, if I remember.
I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it?
It didn't matter
I mean, well,
at
Just
all.
change
the
all
start
your
of-
enjoyment.
I don't even think I needed to watch 1 and 2.
at the start of each film, though, she actually gives you a recap of everything that happened.
Synopsis.
Yeah, she gives you a synopsis.
I don't think in Afterlife they did that.
She did.
They
Yeah, I do it in all
Oh,
of
they
them.
always do. And then in 6,
previously
do it.
on Resident Evil.
essentially, then in the 6th film, they do it, but they change the entire story. And you're like,
Yeah,
what?
Yeah. But then, yeah, and you're like, you know, how many times am I going to listen to the line delivered by Mila, you know, everybody died. The only problem is they didn't stay dead. And you get that same fucking shot of the zombie waking up behind the glass. And you're just like, I just don't need to see this again. What do you do? Okay, you know,
that's a bizarre series.
since we have gone on
Deviated.
to the films there, right? And
Right.
let's maybe just get them out of the way and then get back to the games. But the movies, of the movies that they made, which would you class as the best of the lot? I think it's very clear that we don't regard them very highly.
Nope.
You know, well, I think some people do though. Like, I think it was actually a relatively successful franchise.
Rotten Tomatoes, oh, they fucking love them.
No,
Do
but I think people do. I think people like
Yeah.
like they made 6 of them, and
Yeah,
also,
I mean they're a bit like the Fast and the Furious a bit, aren't they? It's
yeah,
just like,
but you could tell that they impacted the games. There was a
they
period
did.
that they did impact
That's
the games. So
that was unfortunate.
so they were
yeah.
successful, whether people liked them or not. They were
Did
actually
they?
successful.
Well, they
they-
did because that's when the game started going a little bit more towards the action.
Cinema. Well,
adding-
oh yeah. So you had 5 was a bit more action, and then they
Then
did
Nick was
Afterlife.
definitely-
And 6 was absolutely, because it's shit. So that was absolutely inspired by the movies.
Yeah. So what
It is,
I'm trying to get at is that the movies, where a lot of people might say they're terrible, they were not a flop. You know?
No, they weren't.
Not at all. But
Well,
which would you
success
regard
doesn't-
as?
Yeah, success certainly doesn't equal good.
No, and I'm not saying that. Well, I what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people out there. It's not so obvious that everyone just hates these movies. A lot of people like them, and a lot of people have only seen the movies and haven't played the games. So the movies is their version of Resident Evil. You say Resident Evil, they go, "Oh, I love Resident Evil. Yeah, Alice, she's so cool," and you're just like,
Yeah.
But they haven't played the games, and then vice versa. Probably there's a lot of people who maybe just written off those movies. I'm not watching them.
I think technically the first one is the best movie in the series. I think technically.
Right.
But me personally, Apocalypse is the best. Like I think it's the most accurate to the games
Mhm.
out of all the films.
Yeah.
I think it's got obviously a much better budget, so it's just a little bit more fine-tuned and polished than the first one. Even more so than some of the sequels and stuff as well. Um, yeah, I think I think the second one as well. It's not a horror film, right? The first one was a horror film. The second one is like that's where she gets her like she's like superhuman. Like I know towards the end of the first one she was a little bit as well, but in the second one particularly she's a superhuman, and it's like it's a superhero movie now at this point with zombies in it.
Yeah, and it goes from there. Do you know what's funny when you said the first one is like a horror film, and Eric kind of went, I don't think it is. Like I'm not so sure. Like it falls very light on the horror genre, but I think you can tell if you watch that movie. If you're kind of like, why? Okay, so there's kind of some scary scenes with zombies, but then she does a spin kick and kicks a dog. Like, what the fuck is going on in this film? And then when you find out that the guy who directed it directed Mortal Kombat and Event Horizon, you go, okay, I get it. It's Mortal Kombat and Event Horizon. That's what the Resident Evil
like there
movie
are
is.
it's as horror as Event Horizon. Like Event Horizon is a horror film.
Yeah.
Where whether or not you find it scary or not, that's a different thing, right? Horror is is like a huge scale to horror.
Yeah.
And I think Resident Evil is scarier than Event Horizon. So therefore, if Event Horizon is a horror, Resident Evil 1 is absolutely a horror. Because the imagery, I think, in Resident Evil, like once
when they're
the
in
the interesting thing about horror, is that when you can see it, it's not scary. But it's the like
the build up, the anticipation.
The build up to it. It's like when they walk past and they see the girl in the tank and she puts her hand on the thing and wakes up. Like that type of unexpected. Well, it's expected too. It's like the horror I think plays on that like balance between I really don't want this to happen, then it does happen. It's like, oh no. And yeah, I think the bit where they're kind of in the sewery bit and it's just like that constant mob. This mob against like many against a few, I think is what makes zombies scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no matter what you do, there's no reasoning. It's just
I really actually dislike the nowadays everyone seems to do the zombies as these really fast running creatures that when you get bitten you turn really fast. Like it takes. I really dislike that nowadays because I do think it takes away from the horror of just this unstoppable force, just like a wall of bodies just coming towards you.
Yeah.
That you can't stop. Like you take down one, you take down another, but they're still gonna keep coming. Like
I agree.
I think running ones are terrifying.
Running ones are terrifying.
They are scary, but I agree with Eric. I actually always hated the running zombie thing, and when that came along and then it became kind of popular in a few things, I hate that. I think the slow zombie is way scarier when there's so many of them, and I think the process of turning into a zombie slowly is scarier than turning into one quickly. Because
I agree with.
Because so the virus will spread quicker if people turn faster. So therefore, you would think society is more fucked. But
I think
in terms of if you want to tell character storytelling, someone who's been bitten and over time is turning and they know there's nothing they can do to stop it is like impending doom.
I think it depends on the times you see, because the idea of the zombie it is a reflection. It's supposed to always be that reflection on society where it's like when a vast majority of people change a perspective and you can't do anything now about that, right? And you're now against them. It's a massive horde against you. In the old days, they would like be fed this information slowly and they eventually become zombified. Nowadays, information is fed to you like that. You change so quickly. And that's incredibly terrifying. So the modern day zombie, I think, is just a reflection of the modern day, like changing someone's opinion, and it's a massive mob that you can't go against.
Yeah,
we
that's
were going
deep, man.
Philosophical with the 25th anniversary of Resident Evil.
No, I fucking love it, man.
That's good.
That was good.
I now love fast running zombies because he fed.
Well, that's why I think there's
quickly.
a place.
Yeah, so I've changed my mind so quickly now.
There's a place. That's why there's a place for both, and it's like the fast running zombie. I think the reason you probably hate it is because of when it's being placed. It's like if it's placed in a film where it's just like, oh yeah, we just need a scary creature. But like, if there's a bigger, like, I mean, 28 Days Later, the fast moving and fast infected.
Yeah, I will admit I enjoy it in that,
brilliant.
but like I tell you where I didn't like it, and then it became a thing in some games and some
it's
cartoons.
that's when it becomes.
Do you remember
a problem.
World War Z?
Yeah.
And they're all crawling on top of each other, and I'm just like, that's ridiculous. And I know a lot of people enjoy that. Yeah, but when you're seeing them crawling on top of each other like a swarm of, I'm just like, that just looks stupid. It doesn't look scary. It just looks stupid.
Yeah,
it doesn't look real.
That type of situation is like, that's not a, like, the idea of a zombie is obviously the person, a person who doesn't think for themselves. That's what a zombie's supposed to be. Yeah, I'm very certain that that's always been the depiction of zombies, is the reflection on, like, the original Dawn of the Dead, not the newest one, but the original one. The fact that they were going back to the store, going back to the mall, it was like them trying to fit back into normal day, the things that they used to do and stuff like that. Like, it's always been about like the perception of a mass audience. They're constantly they're changing, whereas World War Z seems to be more of a natural cause disaster, like the idea of a natural plague that would change into, like, you're fighting against nature, which is not as terrifying, and that's not a zombie really. It's not as scary.
No. I don't think so.
See, that was the film that did make me though go, no, like they're changing too fast, because we're talking about these people now being shot in the torso doesn't affect them all of a sudden. You have to shoot them in the head. Their entire perception of reality and what they react to and the way they behave and the fact they're like has changed like in 12 seconds. It's like, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a slow change.
Yeah, again, like at the moment we're in a pandemic, and this coronavirus is extremely dangerously effective and dangerously fast. But it still takes like 2 weeks? It still takes
it can take up to 14 days, for it to actually show symptoms in the body. So any virus of any kind, really, some are quick working, sure, but if it's going to affect your whole body, it needs time to actually like incubate within the body, right?
But
anyway, sorry, no, hold on.
Okay,
sorry, we're going way off.
Well, we're still within the topic.
I know, but boundaries of zombies.
I just want to know which of the live-action Resident Evil movies you like.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's not what you're going to get, Chris. You're going to get a very deep dive philosophy on
into what is a zombie.
What is a zombie?
What?
Well, they Resident Evil also did running zombies and never explained it. They actually like introduced the Las Plagas thing in Afterlife.
Yeah, they never explained that.
What? And then they had the Las Plagas in the fifth film. And they weren't even the Las Plagas. They were just these guys with machine guns. I was like, what?
Those movies are the example of, like, they do everything I hate about video game movies, which is this sort of cosplay thing of, like, wouldn't it be just cool if this thing was in it? I was like, okay, well, how does it play into the story? No one cares about that. They'll see it from the game and they'll be like, wow, cool. And it drives me fucking crazy, Or, like, Leon S. Kennedy is in Resident Evil Retribution. And he's not Leon S. Kennedy at all. And he just shows up as part of a team with a guy who's supposed to be Barry Burton as well, who looks nothing like Barry Burton, except that he has the big gun.
And the red sleeveless jacket.
Yeah, and they're going down to rescue into this facility on a rescue mission. And oh my god, like, and Ada's in it, and fair enough, Ada looks like Ada and moves like Ada and pretty much acts like Ada. And then her and Leon at the end just have a little flirty moment together, because it's like people are like, oh, it's Leon and Ada. But they have had no interaction in the whole fucking movie.
So in saying that, I would probably put the first or second one as being probably the best, because actually, in saying like everything feeding into the story, it would be the first one, because you have Alice, and she's on the ground, and she doesn't know how she's on the ground, and they're constantly putting in all these hints, and they're building up to the big reveal. And even when they're the first time they ever meet the zombies, they're in what's known as a dining room or something, or a feeding room, and it's all these big chambers, and they look in and you see a liquor. Or, well, you can't really make it out, but it's hinting at the liquor. And then when they open the doors, that thing opens up, the liquor gets out. So they're setting up the liquor is going to come into it later and stuff. So as an actual structured story, the first one is probably the best one.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna agree with you. I think the first one is the best movie. I think the second one is the most enjoyable to watch. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the second one is just like, everyone enjoys the Raccoon City incident, I think, and everyone enjoys Nemesis and that scene in the school with the little school children zombies is pretty fucking. That bit's creepy.
Terrifying, yeah.
Especially when the news like there's something really scary about the idea of like, okay, so any zombie is scary, but like a child, when you see children, and you always associate innocence with children, and you have this woman trying to plead to children not to eat her, and then they eat her, and there's no talking to them, like that's a really scary thought, I think.
And it's also like, I mean, like you'll probably be very willing to defend yourself and shoot a bunch of like zombies if they're coming at you, but if you see them and they're kids, that I think makes you pause, definitely.
Yeah, it would have been, I think.
And it's a whole classroom. There was no way she could have even gotten out of there.
Yes, fucked, like, yeah. There's something interesting that we were talking about, like, would even the first Resident Evil movie be like a horror movie, right? And the fact that I think horror as a genre, in terms of movies, seem to have been, for the most part, dominated by the West. There are some great Asian horror movies out there, but like when people think of horror in terms of cinema, they think of like the American slasher movies, right? It's a very American thing. When you go to video games, and again, there's exceptions to the rule, the biggest like horror games in gaming comes from Asia. It's the exact opposite. The biggest horror names would be Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Yeah. And they're both Asian properties. And people always cite Resident Evil, especially the first one, as sort of they call it the grandfather of survival horror. Like, it kind of kicked off the genre. It's so interesting that it's a complete switch or complete flip. Like, I know there's plenty of Asian horror movies, and there have been for many, many years, but they were, in terms of grand like cinema, under the radar a little bit more, and have kind of come into the light in more recent years, I think. But
yeah,
this whole thing of like that,
yeah, well, I think
the scary
when it comes to Japan, when it comes to the creative process, are not exactly afraid to expand the mind of something that's horrifying, and we've seen that plenty of times within their visual their visual descriptions, or within some of their like, they're not really afraid to go somewhere that the West wouldn't go. And
what do you mean?
I mean,
I think it's a culture thing.
Like they, okay, I don't know if I could bring it up based on what it is, but they're not. If they're wanting to do something horrific, they or want to make someone seem horrific, they'll kind of go like nearly all the way with it. It's like, right, we want to make this person most despicable. They're going, what is the most despicable thing they could do? This is what they'll do, right? So if we're wanting to make...
Right, I could think of kind of like an example of in cinema, in terms of movies, in terms of difference. If I think I'm talking about the same thing you're talking about, Old Boy. I know that's not Japan, right? The original Old Boy versus the American remake of Old Boy.
Right, yeah.
Both get at the same story. Both are quite disturbing. But the Asian one goes way further than the American one. And that is because the American one doesn't want to go that far for its audience.
Yeah.
Is that like, kind of the thing you're talking about? And then in horror, it's similar?
Yeah, because like even or Asia had, they made The Ring and they made The Grudge and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So and they have plenty of ghost stories, like what Adam said with culture. They have plenty of ghost stories and monsters and stuff. Like even the idea of like, like in Resident Evil, it's not a Resident Evil monster unless there's some giant eyeball somewhere.
Yeah, right.
That is from actually a Japanese mythological monster. I think it has an eyeball in its arse or something like that, right?
An eyeball in its arse.
That's terrifying.
Something like that. It's an eyeball in a very weird area anyway. So like, it is a cultural thing, and I think it's also that they are just willing to go that step further than the West are.
I do think it's
to make something disgusting.
like, because you mentioned, like, okay, so in America the slasher movie is horror, and in Asia it seems to be more
Ghost.
supernatural. But it's not just, it's like in Japan, in particular, there is like a, they would consider things like depression and not doing well and things like that. That's not something that they open up about, but they do consider them to be like demons that haunt them. Like there
Right.
is a, like, I mean, it's not a fucking soft topic at all, but there is a culture, like a high suicidal culture in Japan.
They have a forest, don't they?
Yeah, they have a whole forest dedicated to just, and the forest is haunted, and then, you know, that just screams like Silent Hill on
Right.
what they touch
Yeah.
on. In America, you have the serial killer.
Yep.
That seems to be plaguing the big cities and stuff like that, and that they don't quite understand the serial killer, and it's like this constant, just this one man entity that just seems to get you in your sleep, and you cannot defend yourself. There's your slasher. So I think it is completely cultural.
Yeah.
In terms
Yeah.
of how they
That's a good
depict
point.
it, but yeah, like, I think, could you imagine if Japan studio did a Resident Evil movie? Like, that would be really interesting.
It would. I think it'd be really cool. But you've actually, it's really interesting. Then Resident Evil is different to Silent Hill in that the threat is not supernatural.
No, but the threat
The creatures look supernatural, but the threat is not supernatural, and it's actually based. A lot of it is based on American cinema.
Yeah, partially American cinema, but there is also that culture of, like, westernizing Japan in terms of big corporations coming in and taking over.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that kind of horror aspect to it. Well, see, it is a corporation that develops the thing as well, like, and
Shout out to Umbrella.
changes is again changing the perspective of the people.
Yeah. But they're
so-
also playing with the genre of body horror. Is that what it's called?
Absolutely. Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
Like
Which
The
is
Thing.
the
John
like the thing.
Carpenter's-
The whole
yeah.
thing is a bit, or the Fly, even if you want to take that one as an example.
Yeah.
This idea of your body and totally against your will transforming into something else starts off very simply as zombies, but actually one of the more interesting things about the Resident Evil games, like the zombies are a base level threat, and that's just literally to populate the world with whatever.
Yeah.
Really, it's built around these gigantic monstrosities, you know, which take the form of boss fights. And in the older Resi games, you really didn't have to fight that many zombies, but the boss fights were pretty mandatory. You have to take on bosses at points,
Yeah.
and to turn into these huge, horrible monstrosities, and that's really body horror kind of shit. Where it's like, you know, how did that even happen to a
And it's
human
always
being?
the bosses as well. It's like the more evil you are on the inside, the more on the outside you'll be reflected. Like,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, I think there's
yeah,
there's
go
also a level of like the you know, like in American in American cinema and culture now, it's very hard for them to do something and not essentially have the 9/11 sequence. I think we discussed it before when we were talking about Man of Steel.
Oh, in a post 9/11 world, it's hard not
Yeah.
to visually reference it. Yeah.
I think as well with Japan, a lot of their horror also is slightly stemmed from the Hiroshima and Nagasaki stuff as well. The mutations and
Right.
pollutions of that
Yeah.
stuff. So so like what I'm talking about the body horror and stuff, and then the cultural, like, spiritual dimension being demented. But then there's also that element of the dangers of science, the dangers of
Yes.
not controlling your scientific advancements into making world ending.
That's really what Resident Evil is, actually. It's science gone wrong, isn't it? It's like research for the sake of research, and it's like, how far can you possibly go with this, and should you do it? And, you know, creating something horrible for the sake of, but we can do it. Like, later on, they try and make this cheesy thing about Umbrella, sort of, it's like, oh, really? They were actually trying to, I think it's the Resi 5 thing again. We talked about it earlier, where it's like, actually, they were trying to find the perfect human being or something. I don't buy that shit. I think early on, it was really just about doing experiments on humans and seeing how far can we take this.
Yeah,
How
it was
far
a bit
can
of
we
a
go with
Dr.
this? What can
Moreau
we
kind
create?
of
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in saying that, we're talking a lot about the monsters. What's your favorite Resident Evil monster?
Liquor.
The liquor? How come?
I think just at an early age that just stayed in my mind. Like, I never played Resident Evil 2 at a young age, but I did watch bits of it, and I remember it crawling along the ceiling, and you get that little cinematic, and it has that kind of weird, not a hiss, but somewhere between a hiss and a growl
Screech.
kind of a thing.
Oh.
And you see the tongue, and then it jumps down, and you have to not necessarily fight it, but run away. And then I suppose back in Resi 5, then when you see that hallway of liquors, before you get to a hallway, isn't there just like a few of them or something like that? It's not many.
Yeah, I think,
It's
yeah,
not
I think
many,
it's
and
one or
it's
two.
like at that one or two, you're like, oh my god. Like, there's no build up, but you know, these are in there because these mean business. These are the worst thing you could possibly come across as part of, in terms of the infantry, I guess, of in Resident Evil. And then you get to the next hallway, and there's way more of them, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, you have to go down, turn, come, and then back. Because you're trying to get to the door on essentially the other side, like, and there's just
There's
the
so
whole
many
liquors
of them.
all the way.
But before we get
They're so iconic.
Eric's, I'm going to jump on then and say for me it's also the liquor. I agree with everything you've just said, and I think as well, you just automatically associate an oh fuck when you see a liquor.
Yeah.
I hold a liquor up as highly as the Xenomorph.
Yeah, it has
I
that
think it's
quality
as
to it.
cool as that. There's something creepy about the tongue. It has no eyes, and it just looks like pure flesh. And it's and of the monstrosities, actually, obviously they're all pretty far-fetched. But because it is just sort of flesh, it feels like maybe that could happen. Like maybe someone or something could turn into that. I don't know.
Do you know
but
what
even
I think is interesting about it is that, like, I don't know, not in Resident Evil particularly, the whole shoot them in the head and they die thing.
right.
I mean, where did that even come from?
I don't know.
Would that not
One
come
of
from
the-
George A. Romero?
Yeah, it must have been. And
it
yeah,
might have been,
again,
yeah.
it's like destroy the mind, you destroy the.
Yeah, it's like it's the only thing that's really functioning in them, right? Is like I need to eat, I need to eat, so kill the brain.
Yeah, but even on the like philosophical level, you know, when someone like if someone's changed their mind to an opinion, the only way you can you just destroy their brain, and that's the only reasoning you can do. The liquor has his brain on full display. It's like
Yeah.
doesn't matter what the fuck you do to me, I'm not going to change.
But even like when we were playing, like this is just the impact that I think the liquor has. We were playing the Resident Evil 2 board game. We talked about it before after Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's if anyone hasn't played that, by the way, for me it's one of the I haven't played a lot of board games, but it's one of the most fun games I've ever played. I think it's really
Definitely
good.
better than Monopoly.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it translates well from the video game to the board game. But anytime someone pulls out a liquor card, or if a liquor is in a hallway, you do go, fuck, I really need to think about my moves here.
Mm-hmm.
I need to avoid or try to get past that liquor at all costs. You know, like if I could save my bullets, because I could waste a lot of bullets on them. You know, I just think that the liquor has that kind of an impact, and I think it looks fucking cool. But Eric, what's your favorite Resident Evil monster?
So many good ones. There's a lot of good ones. I mean, yeah, the liquor's really cool. I like the hunters from Resident Evil 3. They're not my favorite, but they're kind of like
reptilian things.
the reptilian thing, because they're like the liquors of Resident Evil 3.
Yeah.
But what they do is like you might be walking and you might see they're like poking their head out around the corner to see where are you, and then they'll jump out at you and stuff. And they're really, really tough characters. Probably Mr. X though.
Just for Resi 2.
Just for Resi 2.
He's like the Terminator.
He's like that. Yeah, and that's the one thing is I think he is a much more successful stalker in making you crap yourself than Nemesis is. Because when Nemesis finds you, it's very much a run, and get to the next area. While with him, it's very much a shit, gotta hide. He's coming around the corner, like, and yeah, the hide. Then you go into a room. Will you walk by the room? And then, doof, nope. And it's like, crap, run away. And I just think he is fucking terrifying. Like, he's just this for. But the fact that, like, I mean, yeah, he couldn't really blend into society because he's a freaking 7-foot gray guy. But the idea that he is very human looking. Therefore, they did get a human and they experimented on him.
Yeah.
or
Almost like
at least,
the
or
guys
like
from
the,
Prometheus, isn't he?
yeah,
He is a bit actually. Yeah, it's kind of like the space jockeys.
There's almost
engineers.
there's almost like a Greek god marble aesthetic to him.
Yeah,
But then he also operates kind of like an agent from the Matrix,
Yeah.
yeah, he
like
does.
just
Like,
constantly looking for you and just following commands. It's just scary.
and then it just hearing his feet just
Ah.
stomping through the halls, and then when he finds you, the music like kicks in, and then he just and he's like coming at you like this freaking unstoppable force. But also another thing is, it's kind of like you're comparing him to the engineer or the agent. He's kind of like the Frankenstein monster. Because we don't know how he was made. Really, was he grown or was he constructed? But either way, it's this crazy scientist creating this very humanoid character, playing God to create this. I mean, I know that the Frankenstein monster isn't actually a monster in the book. He's not actually that bad, but in this game, yeah, he is the more modernized version of the Frankenstein monster. In that
Actually,
he's this.
Of those like classic monster tales, Frankenstein's monster is probably like the closest point of reference for what Resident Evil is. Actually, it is mad scientists creating monstrosities out of human corpses or bodies. So it's pretty good bringing that up. Like, it's not like Dracula. And it's not really like the Wolfman. Like, people do change into something against their will, but really the whole Frankenstein's monster thing is a good comparison. I think Nemesis looks cooler than Mr. X, but I get what you're saying in terms of when you're actually playing the game, the way Mr. X is utilized within the game versus the way Nemesis is utilized. Like, that intro sequence of Resi 3 with Nemesis is incredible.
Yeah.
But after that, the whole Nemesis thing dies down a little bit. Whereas Mr. X, when he comes into it, it's just like, well, great, I'm stressed. Great.
Yeah. And then
I'm
there's
stressed for a while.
when you do get rid of him, you're like, oh, thank God. Is that the end of him?
Yeah.
And then he just comes, like, the bit when in Resident Evil 2 again, and you're in the greenhouse. I was playing as Leon, you're in the greenhouse. Man. You get the card key, or whatever it is, because Metal Gear Solid. And then you just hear the doof, 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 and he just breaks the glass and then jumps into the greenhouse, and you're like, fuck, you gotta get out of there. It's a great sequence, because they don't tell you. There's no cinematic, there's no nothing. It's just, here he is. He just comes along to ruin your day.
He's fucking cool. What would you guys love to see from... There's been so many Resident Evil games. What would you love to see from like a new Resident Evil game? Obviously, we're getting Village, which is coming out May. And that's going to be, kind of like 7 and 4 in a blender, and people talked about that before.
Resident Evil 9 coming out.
What?
Yeah, they have announced that they're doing a Resident Evil 9. It's just that it's a few years away, but they haven't announced the time.
I mean, I imagine they were always going to do more, but I just mean, what would you love to see from a Resident Evil game? Is there anything that you think you'd be interested in seeing them kind of go to next? A Wesker origin story, is it?
No, I just bring Wesker back.
Wesker. I think Wesker will come back in one way or another at some point.
They will use Jake Mueller's body to bring back Wesker, almost like Kadaj uses himself to bring back Sephiroth at the end of Advent Children.
Yeah, there's some remnant storyline shit.
Yeah. Be fucking awesome.
But what would you like to see from the games, or would you just like to see more of something that you've played before?
I like the direction they're going in. Trying to explore. At the moment, it's like the Dracula, Transylvania vibe that they're doing here.
Oh, in Village?
Yeah, so introducing classic horror stories, I guess, with their universe. I quite like what the direction they're heading in. But I think, like, how far can they go? Is it always going to be constant attack after attack after attack? There's probably within the games, like Resident Evil 2, it's an entire city. How many people lived in that city? Is there a survivor? Or perhaps is there someone that worked for Umbrella that just at some point felt, this is a bit unethical, and tried to be a bit of a whistleblower and expose them for what they're doing and stuff like that. That way, it's like there's a human enemy as well as possibly some of the horrors that were created. Trying to get like genuine survival horror, like completely rid of it in terms of action. Yes, you can have guns and bullets, but that wouldn't be your thing. You're constantly trying to use your wits, your knowledge of the facility that you're working in, and stuff like that. Like, there's probably lots of stories they could explore within Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Throughout the history of it. But in terms of direction, it's hard to say. I just think they're on what they're doing now. I like what they're doing. I like them to keep exploring.
Yeah. How about you, Eric? What would you like to see from a future Resi game?
Well, from what Adam was saying, actually, when he was talking about all the different stories, I just kind of, one thing did come to the head, be kind of cool, of play as like just a family man or something in an unassuming town in like the early days of Umbrella, and Umbrella's first essentially bio experiment. That kind of idea, and you're watching your friend. So like, if the first chapter is essentially just you being a dad or being a mom, whichever. Being a mom would actually think would be far more interesting. So you're just being a parent and you're going around and you're just saying hi to everybody, and it's just great. And then you get back to your house, and you have your clothes, and then just seeing blood in the hallway, and you're like, what's going on here? And then seeing, like, I don't know, maybe your child is eating your partner or something like that, and just from there then kicking off.
That's literally the beginning of Dawn of the Dead. But that would be cool. Like
but do that.
having like like, I mean, that's something that Resident Evil's never done, is kind of explore humans and relationships in a non-superhuman way.
Yes.
Because could you imagine like building relationships in a Mass Effect kind of manner, and any one of them could turn at some point?
That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, man, so good.
I'm pretty much on the same boat. I would love I love everything that they do, and they come up with such incredible stories and settings, and Village looks really interesting. But at the same time, I do kind of get sick of hearing of a new virus that does a new thing. Mm-hmm. That was like, G, C, T, V, fuck off. You're going to run out of letters of the alphabet eventually. Like, just fucking, you've got some great stuff. I think you could tell a great character story. I really do. Within, like, we were talking earlier on about favorite characters, and yes, they have some great iconic characters, but at the same time, it's like, it's hard to find a character that has a real full arc or anything. Like, the characters don't change much. They just survive the scenario they're in. And I would love a game where you play as a family, or, a member of a family during the Raccoon City incident, who are just trying to get out. Yeah. And your plot then is not, and there's not some new virus, there's not like a new threat. You can literally throw in any of the enemies that are in either 2 or 3, because they're in Raccoon City at the time. And maybe there's like someone else who's also trying to get out, and you're kind of, you clash a little bit because maybe there's only one vehicle out or something, or there's only, I don't know, like survival becomes the enemy more than anything else, or like if you're fighting for supplies and trying to get out of the city before it's destroyed. And the authorities, and again, not like a fighting game. So like,
something like Plague Tale Innocence might be interesting.
Something like that in a Resident Evil setting, actually, and not, we're not talking about like you have to sneak and throw things or anything like that, but that kind of a story
where you are telling someone having to protect someone younger, not just from being attacked, but trying to protect them from having to see the horrors of what's going on around you, and then having to kind of
and having to
your way with people.
And having to make difficult choices during, to protect your own family. I think it should be a full family, because I think, not that you want to see lots of people on screen at once. Maybe at times you leave them somewhere and you go off to do something, and then you come back to them or something. But there's like, I mean, first of all, there's so many games where it's one person looking after a younger person now, and all you'll get is, it's another Last of Us, right? And like, those games are fantastic, but you could explore more. You could do something further. You could even, if you had a family of 4, say, a mother, father, and their 2 kids, at different points you could play as different members of that family, doing different things, and they react differently, and they have different motivations, and maybe they were only on holidays in Raccoon City, and so you could start off in their hotel, and this whole thing kicks off.
Or
And they're trying to
they're
get out,
like-
right?
Yeah, or even
Cool.
that they've tried so hard to leave wherever they were and to make a life for themselves within Raccoon. And it's a dive. The place
man,
they're
that's
living in
great.
is a bit of a dive, but they're just happy with what they've got.
Yeah, like they're in an apartment,
Yeah.
and
And it's like the neighbors are shit, and it's like there's like fucking like the hallways are really bad. It's like, you know, people that are getting drugged up or something, like as in the place they're staying in isn't great, but they're just happy that they were able to leave wherever they were. Perhaps
they got to the city. They made it to the
well,
city.
maybe not. Maybe they managed to make it to America, like as an immigrant story.
Oh, it could be. That could be fun.
Maybe from
Because
Japan.
what's great about
Maybe they're Japanese people coming to America.
Well, that's a different time era, isn't it? I think immigrants would probably be coming from South America or something.
Well, you
like
can come
that.
from anywhere, couldn't you?
Well, I'm just thinking that if to leave a life that you're not happy with,
Right. And
it's
tell kind of
probably
a relevant story.
yeah, probably an area that would have been maybe war torn or in poverty or something like that, and
You'd have
you
to-
come searching for the American dream, and
The American dream is zombies.
well, I think what would be cool there is that, you know, because I think yes, like The Last of Us and stuff like that, like, and even The Walking Dead, a common theme that we find in modern horror is, although it is survival,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily the horror that's the enemy. It's, can you trust your neighbor? In this situation where we're all trying to survive, can you trust your neighbor? And there is obviously there's greater themes there, especially if you're playing as an immigrant family, from that's a non-American trying to survive in this world. Well, how will everyone else treat you in
Right.
this situation? Is there empathy, or are they like, no, I should survive. I'm American. I'm from here, so therefore I deserve the ticket out of here.
And then you have, oh my god, because you're gonna have like the authorities not letting people out of the city.
Yeah, I
I
mean, there's like
sounds like a great game.
there's greater themes you can explore there, outside of just it's a pharmaceutical company that made a horrible virus.
And I think as well, before it all kicks off, you could actually get a taste of what Raccoon City just as a city is like.
Yeah,
Or even through small flashbacks, you know, that let you get to know the characters a bit more. But you could see just like what like we've never really explored Raccoon City. You know, we explored the police department, and then Jill gets to go to the hospital and she's on the streets a little bit. But we've never really, like, there's so much more that could be, you know, maybe we could go to the Raccoon City library. Maybe we could go to the Raccoon City, you know, like, I do actually, the idea of, like, trying to get through a hotel, I think is a cool idea. But it's supposed to be this really big city. It's not like a little town, is it?
it's a
like,
massive city. Yeah,
so,
they block the whole place in. Isn't
and
it?
then if you happen to hear
Yes,
on,
yeah.
you know, maybe some guard is dead somewhere, but you happen to hear on the walkie-talkie about the incoming nuke, I'm sure they could come up with better dialogue than what I just said. But then knowing that you actually do have, you know,
Time
we have
limit.
to get out of this city, and
quite
there
like
could be
as
some
well-
difficult choice in the end. That could be a fucking great
Yeah,
game.
because you could, in order to prolong, because how much of it do you do seeing Raccoon before there's actually a threat? But I quite like how Shaun of the Dead slowly introduced, like, so it's like you're just going about your day and you kind of see someone acting strange. It's like, well, that's fucking weird.
Right, and you haven't really
But, like,
caught on yet.
You haven't copped on it, or you see people getting, well, mugged. But in your neighborhood, that's just a Tuesday.
Oh my god, you could see it.
You wouldn't
literally see
realize
a
that's all
zombie
happening.
in an alleyway. But as far as, because when you were talking about like, oh, maybe people are getting drugged, and the next, you could
Yeah.
just think of some junkie. It's
Yeah,
just like,
the way he's like kind of wandering mindlessly, it's like there's another guy on heroin. Like, it just seems normal. You don't even see it happening around you.
until it really fucking hits the fan.
Yeah.
So get that green lit, guys.
Come on, get us.
It could
Raccoon
just be
City, the
called.
game.
Don't even call it Resident Evil, right? Everyone will know it's a Resident Evil game. Just call it Raccoon City.
Yeah.
Boom. Launch it as a little side game. Well, it'd be a great game. But, yeah, but then also keep doing what you're doing. The last thing I kind of want to talk about before we finish up on talking about Resident Evil as a franchise in general is very recently there was well, a little while ago they put out this poster, right? So there's a new Resident Evil movie being made.
Yes.
And I put out this poster. I don't know if it's official. It had essentially it emulated the cover of Resident Evil 4 in that it was a red forest.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah. That's
right?
Please, is it? Yeah.
And it said Resident Evil, and it had loads of names of different characters from the games, which made me go, I mean, cool if it's official, but it made me think it's not official because I had too many characters from the series as opposed to if it was just from one game. But what do you make of that, and what do you hope for? Because they are making a Resident Evil movie, so I don't know if that's official, but what do you kind of hope for a new Resident Evil movie?
Is it a movie or TV show?
Movie.
Okay.
What's it called? Is it there's a Resident Evil coming out though, Resident Evil Rising Sun or something? Isn't that?
Oh, there's an anime series coming as well to Netflix.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's a series or just an animated film. That's with Leon and Claire again.
Yeah, because they got the voice actors from Resident Evil 2 remake to do them.
Oh, did they? Well, I'm looking
at least that's what I heard.
Seeing that as well, but no, this is going to be a live action movie, and supposedly it might be coming like in the later half of this year.
Who's directing it?
I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that. But did you see the poster first of all?
I only saw the trees and the red with the name. I didn't see. Sorry,
oh God, he's infected. He's infected. Ah!
Thank God I'm near him.
I haven't actually seen all the names of the characters. I didn't see that much.
Okay. Oh fuck, he really is. Oh God.
It's like you can't say it. It's the lale lule lo.
Yeah. So this Resident.
Can you say it?
I can't say much about it. It's a bunch of trees with red posters and so.
You can't get through it. You can't get through it.
You're joking anymore. I can't tell if you're serious or not.
I hope it's good. I hope it's really good.
That's it.
Yeah, I can't say much about it. I didn't see the amount. I don't know how many names are on the poster.
Loads.
Names.
To the point, I tell you one of the names that was on it. You ready?
Right.
This is where I was like, if it's real, cool, but I don't think it's the official poster. I'm not so sure about that. Brad Vickers was one of the names on it. Chief Irons was one of the names on it. I mean, as well as, I don't mean only, as well as Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and those characters. But I'm like, if it's real, that means deep dive shit. That means like the full cast of, like Brad Vickers is not like a hugely well-known Resident Evil character.
He's in Resident Evil 1 and he's in Resident Evil 3. Is it possibly that they're doing the mansion sequence, but they're going to have Chief Irons in it as he's sending the team off?
Possibly.
That might be just small role.
But they had Leon S. Kennedy's name on it, and they had Ada Wong's name on it. That's where I go, hold on now. That's
okay.
That's just that's a whole franchise of characters.
I mean, Aquaman managed to achieve.
Well, there is that. And the Mortal Kombat movie looks like it includes everybody. So it's hard to know.
It can be done.
Maybe it can be done. But you might struggle with, like, who's your lead character if you've got Chris, Jill, Leon, and Claire. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. I would think all of them.
They'll just add in a new character and make that new character the chief main character.
The main character?
Yeah.
Well, what would you?
I assume this is going to be better. That's my assumptions.
I hope it's better.
I would assume it's also going to be better. Here's what I think it's going to. I think sometimes it's a good thing that a bad movie rendition comes out first, right? Because how do you make your version different? And the way to make your version different is to maybe make something closer to the games. That's how you make it different. Therefore, it's like, okay, we got the bad version out there. Here comes I don't know who's making it. I don't know if it's going to be great. But I would think people heard about that George A. Romero was originally going to make the first Resident Evil movie. Right? That's a real thing. He has a script. People have read that script. It was going to be based on the original game. Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine were going to be the main characters. They're going to enter the mansion. It puzzles me why they didn't go with that, because you're like, George A. Romero is the zombie guy, right? Yeah. I just have a feeling that this new movie is going to be someone who's like, oh, I wish I'd seen that George A. Romero version. I'm going to make that. Probably. Not the script, but I'm going to make that setting. So I think it's going to be the Arclay mansion, and I think it's going to...
Well, that only makes sense. I don't understand why you wouldn't do the mansion.
Yeah, do it. Make it happen.
Hang on. Was Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohn on the poster as well?
I can't remember. I didn't see their names. I
Okay.
maybe they didn't stand out to me anyway. There's a few names on it. Albert Wesker's name is on it.
Yeah, but if you're doing Arcade Mansion, you're obviously going to have Wesker. 'Cause it's Wesker. But you're obviously going to have Wesker on it.
But also, it's just like, I can't wait to see Wesker.
And you got Hugo Weaving to play him? Be awesome.
No, he's too old.
Ah,
Be that there, yeah. to be that
CGI,
particular
CGI,
Wesker,
de-age
yeah.
him.
Get your man. What's his name? Is it Ross Marquand?
I don't
Is
know.
that his name? You know the guy from The Walking Dead, and he did the impression of Hugo Weaving Red Skull in.
Oh yeah.
Get him to play Wesker. He can play anyone. His impressions are ridiculous.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
awesome.
Anyway, so those are our thoughts on an upcoming Resident Evil movie, and also our thoughts on our favorite Resident Evil characters, games, and monsters. But we'd love to hear from other people. So if you've been watching us on YouTube, make sure to jump down into the comments, celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Resident Evil franchise by letting us know who your favorite characters are, your favorite game is, your favorite monsters, and what you would love to see from a future Resident Evil game. And if you like our one, start a Kickstarter. Oh, I'm jumping. If you've enjoyed this, you can also give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and click that notification bell. If you listen to us on audio platforms, you can touch base with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take. And again, let us know why Ashley Graham is your favorite Resident Evil character. Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and we will be talking to you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
But seriously though, what is your favorite
Herb.
ammo color?
Red.
Absolutely red.
It's gotta
Hey,
be-
red's pretty good, but when you see that green for shotgun, you're like, okay, cool. I got some shotgun shells to blast some guys' faces off.
Yeah, that's always nice, but you're always like, I fucking hope there's handgun ammo in this drawer.
Yeah,
you know.
You're like, I need red. You
Absolutely
always need red. You'd like blue and green as long as you have red.
Well, blue is
you
blue
need
is some
red.
machine gun, and then white is sniper rifle.
I know.
Yeah,
I don't want white.
no, white's the worst.
It's very rare I'm going to snipe a zombie walking towards me.
Yeah. I'm so
Very
glad I can get a fucking super accurate shot at this guy's pores as he walks towards me. It's like,
Plus, as I'm aiming
when
at
do I
that
ever
one,
need it?
as I'm aiming at that one, another one came from behind me, and I just didn't notice them at all. And then you get the biggest fright of your life when it's like, woo!
Woo!
And that's our end credit scene.